Jay here for SoberFellas, and joining me today is Ojo, who runs the website Weight Loss with Ojo. Ojo, it's great chatting to you. Me and you sort of got to know each other, didn't we, over the last year or so, through our mutual friend Koshy, who was on the podcast a few months ago, talking about his journey with sobriety and addiction. Your journey is a little bit different, isn't it? Because it's not just, you didn't just start this website and start your social media stuff on a whim. This is something that's close to your heart. So it's just take us back a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your weight loss journey.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of two runners in a race, really. Ironically, when I come on to say what I mean by that is, so the weight loss, which was sort of initially started the back end of the first year of the lockdown, so March 2020 come about. So I was working from home. All the bad habits were still there that I already had, but they were just amplified because I wasn't having to walk to an office, to the car park, to the shop. I was just sitting in the house, carrying on eating, drinking, doing whatever I was doing. And then it got to sort of the back end, so October, November 2020. So that's 5 years ago now. And that was when just sort of walked to the shop. We were in a flat at the time. Walked to the shop, came back. My back was hurting, and it was about, I don't know, I couldn't even, about 5-minute walk there and back to go get a bit of chocolate and all that from the shop. And then when I got back, I was like, my back's really hurting. I was like, what's wrong with my back? And I remember we had a full-length mirror, and I just looked at it and I thought, that's obviously what's wrong with my back. Like, it was like I came out of my own body and saw myself from, I don't know how to quite describe it, but I was just like, that's why. And then that night I was just like, right, I've got to have to do something about this. Ordered some scales, was up all night looking at all different diets and all that. And then the next day started, at my heaviest I was, the scales, the biggest scales I could find was 33.5 stone. And it took about a week and a half before that number was on there. So I was somewhere between that and 35 stone, I say, as my heaviest weight. So he's gone on to lose like well over 15 stone since then. And along the way, obviously, as the weight was coming down, I was starting to train more. People were, how have you done this? How have you done that? What should I do? And I just sort of was sat at a bit of a crossroads with loads of things going on in my life, and had a conversation with someone, and he said, what would you want to do that wouldn't feel like work? And I was like, well, I love helping people. And then he was just like, well, why don't you just invest a bit of money, get your qualifications, and set up as a coach online? It's not just about, counting someone's reps. It's about putting your arm around someone and going, look, I've done it, all of the stuff that you think you can't get over, I've got over worse than that. I've lost all this weight, and now I want to help you do it. So that was coming up 2 years since I've been doing it. And then since then I've sort of probably doubled down really and put more stuff out and been honest about my journey online, just to try and, show people that there's a better way of doing it, especially in, we haven't got enough time to get onto the subject of your weight loss injections and stuff like that. But in this modern world where everyone just wants everything really quick, I'm like, actually, there's something to be said for setting a long-term target, walking towards it with the right support and getting there. It's not, people look at my before and afters that I put out and they go, wow, that's mad, that. And then, you come across people that I've known for longer than that who will be like, wow, I remember you when you were, the old version of Ojo. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not happened overnight. It's been years and years, and I'm still not there. I've still got goals that I want to achieve fitness-wise and weight-wise that I'm not there. But it's like, it's not ironically, because I'm going to be running another one and another one, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So yeah, there's a bit of a whistle stop about what's gone on.
What fascinates me about that is the fact that it's sort of you deciding, so you can look at yourself in the mirror and going, I need to do something about this. For me, with my sobriety, it was a mixture of things, and it wasn't just about me, it was about my family, and my missus and my daughter. So there was other sort of external things as well. But that I always found that amazing, to just be able to look at something, at what you're doing and go, I need to stop. And just sort of, we can go back slightly. What was a typical day like for you then, in terms of, was you eating a lot? Was you just not exercising?
So mentioned earlier sort of the two runners, and it was, I think, like gambling, so to talk to sobriety and addiction was, I had a massive say in how my days went really day to day. But when I think back now and reflect, it was like, so a typical day when I was, working in an office, I'd be up, didn't drive at the time because I'd convinced myself for years, like, I don't need to drive, because I'd just rather spend my money on betting and drinking and eating whatever I wanted to and going watching United, etc. So I'd be like, I don't need a car. So my mate would come and pick me up at 8 o'clock, starting in the office at 9. He would always go early. So I'd be up probably 7:30, roll out of bed, brush my teeth, have a shower, get changed, that was it, you know what I mean? Or eat some sort of cereal, apple juice, orange juice, whatever was left from last night, just get it in me, get in the car, go in the office, straight away breakfast. At the time it would have been sausage, bacon, probably hash browns, all sorts. Then a packet of biscuits from the shop to get me through the morning, a packet of sweets or two, get to lunchtime again, big meal deal from the shop, probably with a sausage roll as well. Then maybe get some chips from the canteen at work because I'd still be hungry. The afternoon again, biscuits, sweets, but all throughout that, even when I'm working, and I suppose it was a journey in work from, taking calls and sort of being a part-time worker through to going up to like management level. And even when I got to management level and had more money and more income, I'd be sat in rooms like this with a meeting, and I'd have my phone under the desk, and I'd have put a bet on for every race that was running in that meeting before I'd gone in there. And then we could be having a conversation now about a budget, a contract, a serious conversation. And from time to time, I'd just do that to the point where, I remember someone commented on it once, like, you look a bit distracted, you checking your phone. And I was like, oh yeah, my son's not too well at the minute. And I think when I think back to behaviours like that now, I think, wow, I've just used him as, and obviously straight away someone goes, oh yeah, don't worry about it, mate. Yeah, sorry. I said, yeah, I'm waiting to see if school have messaged me. I'm a bit anxious. But all I'm thinking is that horse just won. But I'd say the reality of it is when I started losing the weight and I was getting the sort of positive feedback from everyone, I'd say that year from when I first started losing the weight until I stopped gambling was probably the worst, because when you're getting the external validation and I've got people saying to me, mate, you're looking better, and I've seen you started walking, or you've been out on your bike, that's top, good on you, can notice the difference. It's like that fueled the demon that was going, keep betting, no one knows about this. This is all bubbling under the surface. And then again, to your point before about family and everything like that, it wasn't necessarily like you hear horrible stories, and I've worked with organisations of people that have potentially that maybe failed suicide or gone bankrupt, and that's like their penny drop moment of when they step away from their addiction. But for me, it was more of a in a hole again. And then, like you say, Lewis at the time would have been 5, 6, so he's starting to get a bit more of an understanding of life. He's talking about wanting to go to United. He wants every United kit, and the money and priorities of money started changing, and it was more of a, like you say, just a bit of a, if I carry on going down this path, I'm going to end up in a ditch, because I'm going to owe so much money out that I'm not going to be able to get any income. And then I was desperately chasing my tail, trying to get more and more pay rises at work. So I was like, well, if I keep earning more money, that'll just patch over all the stuff that's going on underneath. And then stopped gambling, sort of give myself a good few months run, still working whilst I was making and then I was like, do you know what, this isn't serving me. And then since then set up self-employed business management consultant, done anything and everything with that. And then, like I say, come on to this. And I think it's just it highlights the mindset, because who I was, like you say, to go back to what did every day look like, there's no way I would have ever left where I was, because I'd have been like, well, what about if I don't earn any money?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, I've pretty much for the last 4 years now I've got a daughter as well, and like never, we've been on holidays and stuff, and I've sort of always made it work. But there has been months where when I think to what I used to think I needed financially to get by, I'm like, you don't, like, as long as, my car's paid and the bills are paid and there's food on the table and the gym's paid, or whatever, all my bills are paid, that's all that matters. Whereas before, it was almost like I've got to work harder or push more at work for more money, just so having this pot that ultimately I was just paying for Sky Bet's Christmas do every year. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Mate, it's amazing, because you've got quite a lot going on there.
Yeah.
And the gambling side of things as well, you were sort of quite matter of fact, and I just stopped gambling. How difficult or easy was that to do? Because if you're doing that constantly, because I've worked with lads like that who would have the phone on the desk, and it'd be like the I don't even know the meetings, at 2 Kempton or whatever, and they're all glued to the phones because they've piled a load of money on it and stuff like that. How easy or difficult was it just to say, right, I need to stop that?
Well, I think it's a good question, and I think the irony of it is, again, people that have seen the physical journey, and when someone's nearly 35 stone and loses 15, 16, 17 stone, it's visible. You can go, wow, mate, that's mint. Or even ran a marathon, I can't believe that, you could never walk up the stairs, now you've run a marathon. But when I get to talking about it, I'm like, the biggest thing for me and the biggest success for me is stopping gambling. it's not physical, but it was hard. I went through like a full course of therapy. I did CBT, which I recommend to clients of mine now and anyone that will listen, because you do really have to sort of go back, not to 5 years ago. You have to go back to being born and really uncovering, like, you know, what happened and didn't happen in your childhood that might have prompted things. And it's not, some people say it's like seeking excuses for behavior. It's not, it's understanding why you might have done things and why you might not have done things. And so yeah, it was a lot more difficult, and still is, because a lot of friends and a lot of like I went to Cheltenham every year for 7 years. The Cheltenham Festival's massive, and in my mind, which is quite funny, I convinced myself that I loved horse racing, and I was like, I love horse racing. I was well into it, like the yards, the weights, and everything. I could speak for hours about it. And then the day that I stopped gambling, it was almost like, well, I've not actually got any interest in horse racing. It was almost like I've just blagged myself that I cared about the sport just as a justification to bet on it. So the answer to your question, gambling was a lot harder to stop. And like I say, that's probably, if someone says like, you know, have you ever had like a, you know, pat on the back moment where you thought, yeah, you know what I mean, like you've done something. It is more every year. When Boxing Day as well was a big one. There's a race every 5 minutes on a Boxing Day. That was another big day for me. So every Boxing Day, every Cheltenham Festival that goes by, I get more, for me personally, I feel prouder that I've got past that than looking at pictures and thinking, wow, I used to look like that, you know, because I'm like, well, actually, yeah, it's great, but the addiction, and when, as you know, what we're talking about here, when an addiction's got a grip of you and you have control over that going forward, like for me, that's like the ultimate, like, sort of fuck you, if I can swear, to that previous version of you. And it's like, that's, you know, it's hard, and I think not enough people speak about it. And to your point about, you know, lads with the phones out, I think it's quite ironic, because, you know, I've worked in offices for years, and I think like even senior managers, it's just so normalised. So when it's Cheltenham week and you walked in any office in town and you just nipped your head in, the likelihood is, from your directors down to your whoever's doing the admin, is someone's probably going to have a bet on, or it's the Gold Cup day and people have got their accas on, and it just creates a culture where it's normalised. And I think even like amongst my friends, some who, you know, were bad with gambling and some maybe still are, if I would have theoretically been sat in a pub, you know, United are playing, or travelling down to an away game was an example that stands out to me. Is travelling down to an away game, I'll be on there every 10 minutes, you know, everyone's having a drink and the rest of it, going to Southampton away, and I'm betting 6 to 10 races an hour on the 6-hour journey down to Southampton. So sometimes I can get off that bus and it doesn't matter what the result's going to be. If I've lost, I could be a grand down. Yeah. So I'm already, you know, I've watched us draw there, and I lost count of how many times as well. But them kind of days, but the conversations with, you know, lads about it's almost like laughed at. You know, like, oh mate, I needed this horse to win for X amount of money, and it's, you know, it's fell. It's almost like, oh, that's banter, and it's like, well no, it won't be banter if someone walked in and you could tell they'd not been to bed for 4 days and they went, mate, I've done this amount of money, and you'd be like, mate, are you okay? Do you want help? Yeah. Whereas I always found that with gambling, it's almost like, oh, lucky her, like next time it's net. Whereas, you know, you're talking, say, drugs, for example, if someone had been on a bender for 4 days and you could visibly see it and they walked into an office, the manager would probably pull them and go, we need to have a conversation. Whereas if someone walked in an office and went, I've done my brains over the weekend and lost my mum's wages, it'd almost be like, oh, I'm lucky.
Yeah. You know, you're right.
Or did you have both teams to score on? And it's like, I'm telling you that I've done a monthly wage in a weekend. Like, this is not good. You know, I'm at my all-time low, and it's the perception is a bit like, oh yeah, but you know, you'd be all right, and the next horse will win, or, you know, or someone, you know, people say outlandish things like, oh, why don't you put a load of money on United to win at the weekend, like that'll be all right. And I'm like, when I think back now, at the time I just thought I'd laugh it off and be like, oh, I'll make it work like I always do. But generally, the cultural thing, like you say, it's just so normalised. So yeah, it's a mad one.
It is because you're right. It is normalised, and it's sort of, you know, like you say about the difference with drugs. If I was coming into work and doing sniff off the table, people would be like, whoa. But if you're like, oh, I've just put a bet on, like people go, all right, okay. Do you know what I mean? Or like, all right, yeah. It's not like there's a massive stigma around it. But when someone's spending, and the difficulty you've got as well with gambling, certain to the extremes you're doing, it's almost limitless, isn't it? You can just bet and keep betting all day long. Whereas even when you're drinking or taking drugs, I'm not saying one's better than the other or getting into any of that, but there will be a limit.
Yes.
Where if you're drinking or taking drugs where you're either unconscious, you've run out of drugs, you're, you know what I mean? Something has physically stopped you from carrying on. Whereas online now with gambling, it can be, you know, almost never ending.
Yeah, it is, and it's to, like you say, whatever you've got, and there's something that come in a good few years ago, even before I'd stopped, and it's like, you know, what's crazy is you used to be able to bet with a credit card, so that's even scarier. But then they stopped that. But then there's loads of ways around it, and it's like, oh well, actually, if you get this credit card, and you can actually use, you know, again, hands in the air to without going into too much detail. Basically, with American Express, if you send, so you've got a PayPal account, I say, right, I could send you money on PayPal, and it'd be fine. So theoretically, and which is what I did many times, I'd say to you, right, let's send you $1,000 on PayPal, but just send it to my bank.
Ah, right.
So okay. I've got a limit, and then on American Express, it looks like, well, why is Ojo buying what they don't be bothered. It's just a PayPal thing, and as long as that minimum payment got made every month, it didn't matter. So it was like when that come about, I was like, bang, there's 10 grand to bet with, straight off the bat. It's like, and I'm saying to my mates, because they're at the time, they're understanding it's a problem, but again, if I was saying to my mate, lend me $1,000 to bet with, maybe he'd put a, you know, what do you mean? But in his head, he's like, wow, what you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm just going to send you this on PayPal, or don't worry about it, just send it to my bank from your PayPal. I'll get you beer.
Yeah, and I'd be the same. Like, if someone said that to me, I'd be like, yeah, whatever.
You'd be like, you'd almost be like, why? But you wouldn't think.
Yeah.
But if I said to my mate, I need $1,000 to bet with because I've got to pay the bills next month, they'd probably say, I'll pay your bills for you, sort your head out. But and just like what you said there, if you know, again, it's not one being worse than the other. It's just the visibility of it. It's the big thing. If you're an alcoholic or you're into drugs, as you know well yourself, it's like it is visible to the outside world. Whether you think you're a good drinker and you're a good sniffer and people don't know, to the everyman, if you walk down the street and you're tuned in, people know whether they do anything or not, and it's commonplace of a Friday, Saturday night in most areas. But it's, you know, like you say, there was instances where I'd be in meetings where I'm like, you know, holding a meeting, and I'd be like, I could leave and have lost hundreds of pounds in that meeting, and it's like, it was just, when I look back now, I just think, what was I doing? Do you know what I mean? Like, I look more to that version of me as a, what were you doing, than when I look at me at Barcelona away at 30 odd stone and I couldn't walk up the stairs and I had to go in the lift, and my mate was like, I feel like you carer. And the Spanish guy basically must have said to whoever was on the turnstile when we went, he needs to use the lift and this is his carer. And I remember thinking, like, we had a banner about it at the time. He's like, oh, mint, straight to the bar, you know, because if you've been there,
the new camp,
when
I went, I was in the home end.
Oh right,
yeah,
okay.
But my mates, some of whom you know, they were up there, and I don't know if it's the same when you were there. They had like the perspex thing, so like they couldn't even see what was going on.
You can't see a thing.
But that is right in the gods, isn't it? Because I remember thinking, I'm glad I'm in the home end. I say the home end, I'm in the normal bit. But yeah, like that. I mean, it's mad, isn't it? Because you have these moments that you think might be a wake up call, but they're not. But then everyone's got their own, either rock bottom or wake up call, whatever you want to call it, where the penny drops. When you stopped gambling and you started sort of dieting or addressing your weight issues, what was the response like from your friends? Because I think sometimes with my addiction, what happened to me was I built up things in my head where I'm going to lose all my friends. They all want me to carry on. And that wasn't the case. What was it like for you when you started addressing some of the issues?
I think it was a bit of both. I think when you look close to my mum and missus, it was more, they were upset initially, and then they do that. I'm sure you've experienced it, and most people that have, you know, can talk about recovery of any kind, is that I think they feel a sense of almost guilt, like, well, I didn't know, I can't believe I didn't pick up on it. And I'm like, no, that's the whole point. You never would have picked up on it. You know, as long as there was food in the fridge, it didn't matter. You know, you weren't to know that it was paid for because I'd sent my mate money on Amex and then been to you didn't know that, and you weren't to know that. And my mum in particular, and because even going back to probably started gambling 16, 17, when I was at my mum's house, and, you know, I'd be watching the horses and I'd be going mad, and like, she used to go, how much have you had on that? I got £1 each way, and that was like the running joke, you know what I mean, forever. And then I started going to the races, and it'd be like, you know, even like the Grand National had a few winners on, and I'd be like £1 each way. And I remember, like, she said only ever time she half questioned it was Kempton, you mentioned it earlier, on the all-weathering. It must have been the last race of maybe 9 o'clock of a whatever month it was. And the favourite was 1-2. And I think that was probably the first time I put 500 quid on a horse and it won. So I was going mad. And she was like, how much have you had on that? I said, £1 each way. And she was like...
So you've made like £1.50 or whatever that would work out.
I'm stupid? Yeah. 1-2.
Yeah.
What if you had on it about 20 quid? And I went, yeah, something like that.
All right. So she's giving you a little bit of a get out there
so she's
by
almost
just suggesting
said, like,
20 quid.
I'm not daft, but what is it? You got about 20 quid on it. And obviously, even when I've spoken to her about it, she goes in work and she's talking to her friends who have got kids of a similar age or older, and she's saying, I'm a bit like, I think he's betting a bit much. They're all at it. They're all got the accumulators on in the pubs, and they've all got these both teams to score and all that. So I think the shock from the reaction from them was almost like, wow, I didn't know, good on you. But like you say, in terms of friends and friendship groups, you did realise quickly that was like the foundation. They were your friends, but they were like my gambling friends. Right. Do you know what I mean? And it was like very quickly, you're like the group chat that was, I spoke to them more than I spoke to anyone else. And it was like, all of a sudden, it's like, well, they're not really talking about anything but bets and but horse racing. And then so certain friends drifted away from, but I'd say for the most part, I think what's funny is a lot of my closer friends from like school, because they've known me and I was always like a big guy, for example, that had a bet, and they've not so much doubted it, but been almost like, yeah, but you was never actually that big, were you? Like, you're just saying that for your Instagram to exaggerate it. And I'm like, mate, no, I'm not. Like, look, here's the pictures, there's the picture of the scale, you know what I mean? Like, it's not exaggerating it. And they're like, wow, I never even realised. And then, some of them now, when you look at the pictures, they go, like, they almost maybe feel a bit of a, like, wow, I can't believe I didn't say anything to you. Do you know what I mean? Like, because... And that's some other people that I've met maybe since have said, mate, if I was friends with you and you were that big, I would have said to you, you need to sort something out for your health. And I said, but difficult to say that, because when you're friends with someone, you don't want to hurt the feelings. But also, I don't think anyone saw me as hitting 35 stone, depressed, gambling addict. They saw me as life and soul of the party. I had a missus, confident, never struggled with going out. And so, yeah, I think that the funny one from people that have known me forever is almost like, yeah, but you wasn't really that bad. And I'm like, well, I don't know if that, maybe they're saying that to make themselves feel better, but then yeah, did drift away from a few friends as well. But I think, like we've touched on there, you realise who wanted you for what, and you think, well, actually, was it just someone to make you feel better about your addiction that you've got that you're now denying, or was I a friend? Because if I was a friend, you'd be my friend with or without the gambling. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear that, and I'm in a similar situation where there were certain friends I had that were sort of just like friends that I used drugs with, and then there's friends that I've got that I've still got now that were friends that it wasn't about drugs or drinking, it was, about being genuine mates. And from my point of view, obviously, I think almost everyone that knew me could say I had an issue. Yeah. So like when I stopped, they were like relieved.
Yeah.
And you mentioned there about one of your friends almost acting like your carer. My friends were like my carer almost every time we went out, because I get myself in such a mess.
Yeah.
That a lot of them are like, finally, thank God I ain't got a babysit you. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it sort of changed. What's it like now then for you? Because obviously you do the weight loss stuff.
Yeah.
You obviously you're helping other people. What's that like for you to be able to sort of use your experience and your knowledge to help other people on their journey? I
think like you touched on it earlier about, it's impressive that I could just have that like moment and do it myself. And that's what, before I first set up and, had conversations with friends who sort of essentially gave me the confidence to be like, well, what you've done is a superpower to be able to pull yourself from where you were and get yourself to where you are now. So what you need to do is sort of, you need to be the voice for the people and put yourself out there. And yeah, I mean, I think it's the best feeling in the world. Do you know what I mean? Like when because I've had, I've put out there on Instagram, like people that have come and been, like I've worked with some people that are in the sort of the public eye, whether it be YouTubers and stuff like that. And I think it's the third hand, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, like them getting compliments on their appearance, but not just their appearance. It's like, you look like a different person, and because you're pulling confidence out of people, and you see it as the weeks and the months go by of like people almost changing how they talk about themselves. But I'd say like there's no better feeling than that, like feeling like someone's leaning on me for the support. And even when I'm getting the feedback and I have regular catch-ups and they're like, well, if you can do it, I can do it. And I'll use that. And I always say that as like it's not just a sales pitch, but it's like, mate, I was nearly 35 stone. I was in a puddle with gambling. So if I can maneuver my way over the years to being where I'm now, ran a marathon, training for another one, I'm in the gym every day, you know what I mean? I've not bet for 4 years plus now. So it's like, actually, if I can do it, and I've had a family, and ran a business and tried to juggle jobs, and it's not like I wasn't sat at my mum's with no responsibilities, with nothing going on in my life. And, some of these you see, and it's not to throw shade on them, potentially say an ex-footballer that sort of all right, and then they set up as an online coach, and you think, absolutely, if you're looking to appeal to people similar to you, go for it. And that's what I always say. I've had conversations with people who say things like, I don't really want to put the time in. I just want, I've got an holiday in 3 months, and I just want to get in sick shape in 3 months. I'll do anything. I'll put myself on as many, low calories as you want. I'll go in the gym twice a day. And I'm like, I'm not here to do that. That's not long-term change. Doesn't come from a 3-month shred quick thing. And, I've spoke to different mentors that say, mate, what you want to do is get a 3-month, an 8-week of this and that, and get a group. And I'm like, do you know what? It's not about that for me. It is about putting my arm around someone and being like, come with me and let's get you sorted. And the more times that people go through the cycle, there's no better feeling. And like I say, I wish in a parallel universe I'd be able to do it for free. You know what I mean? And because that is the thing. A lot of people I've spoken to, sometimes it just comes down to like, I haven't got the money. You know what I mean? And the irony of it is, you go, send me your Uber Eats and your Deliveroo, and you know what I mean?
Spending like 300 quid or 400 quid a week at least on junk food or whatever, exactly. And then it's like, I ain't got the money to get fit. Yeah. No, I hear that, and it's a sort of, it's such a unique one with weight loss. Yeah. Because it's so obvious. Yeah. Straight away almost. Yeah. Because I've had it where in lockdown I put on weight, and during lockdown I was sober. Yeah. And sort of, I've been sober throughout ever since then. But more people noticed when I lost weight and complimented me on that and said stuff like, "Oh, Jay, you're looking trim now. You look like," you know what I mean, over my weight loss, which to me wasn't as important to me as staying sober. It wasn't like I've got to. It was just a case of, after lockdown, we'd started the channel. I'd grown a shitty beard. Honestly, the worst. Anyone who watches Strength for Paddle will say I had the worst lockdown beard. It lasted a week after lockdown. I was like, get rid of that. It was feeble, and I'd put on a bit of weight. And like yourself, I'd like to go running and stuff. So I'd sort of lost a bit of weight and got rid of this beard. And then a few people complimented on me and like, oh, you know what? So it is weird because you don't always get that straight away when, people can see the change in you if you've stopped taking drugs or whatever, but they might not know it as quickly as what you've done. And what you've done is completely, it's inspiring. And how does that feel to you as well when people come to you and say, or you see the change that you've helped people with? Because some people go to dark places, and there's times when this can be life-saving. I'm not being melodramatic. Oh yeah. It is. Yeah. We know how fragile life is and how people can. I've been some dark places myself, and just one or two things go the different way, then you can end up, in a really, really dark place. What does it mean to you when people say to you, thanks for that, you've helped me, or you see it physically, you see the change you've helped with people?
Like I say, I think it's that full cycle, and I'm sure you've had it with, like you say, with regards to the stuff you've done in your own career. If we're talking from a career point of view, it starts with like a bit of imposter syndrome, a bit of like, oh, don't worry about it, it's not you, it's me, and to put it in I'm sure as the channels grow, oh, don't worry, you're smacking it, you're flying, I've seen you on this, I've seen you doing that, I've seen this person's commented on this, I've seen you've been sent this. And I think at the start for me, it was very much like almost downplaying it. And a lot of the time when someone would say to me, I can't believe how much weight you've lost, my first response would be, yeah, but I had it to lose, didn't I? You know what I mean? It's almost like and it probably took, like you say, 6, 9, 12 months into the coaching where it's like, well, I've done this myself, I'm getting fitter myself, I've started running, I'm smashing the goals that I want personally, but also it's now been applied to other people and other people who have got families and got difficult situations and got crazy jobs where they're traveling, and I'm changing their lives. So it's like, like I say, there's just it's the best thing in the world. But the flip side is it's having that separation, because not everyone is, you know, a lot of people like the idea of it, like, you know, everyone wants to look good naked, but no one wants to train, is like, it's what a lot of people say, but it's true, because I think I can have conversations with people or do my consultations, and they get all excited, and they might even, you know, I could tell you stories, people that have paid me a decent amount of money for a 6-month program up front. We're talking, we've had a call, we've had another call, they've gone away, yeah, mate, I'm keen. They've paid the money, and then they'll do a week or two, and I don't hear from them. So I'll still check in with them. They're still on the app. I'm still trying to give them the service. I'm messaging them. I maybe even ring them out the blue. Nothing. Radio silence. And you think, what's that? And then now at the start, I was like, is this me? Am I not doing enough? Do I need to change my processes? Do I have to ask more questions before they pay me the money? Do I need? And actually, when you zoom out and you go, well, for that moment, for that 2 weeks, whatever they thought that they wanted was to change. They thought they were ready to do it. They just obviously weren't ready. You know what I mean? Because it's not for the want of me trying or not trying to make contact. And that at the start was something I struggled with the coaching, because I felt like I was taking everything personally. So if a client wasn't being successful, I was almost thinking in my head like, well, this is because of me. I'm not a good coach. I don't get it.
Sometimes as well, I mean, I don't know if this is true. I know this with me, like, you can have it in your head that you're doing something about something because you've signed up for something. Because I've done this. I know it's that old thing, innit? I've joined the gym. Have you been? No. But in your head, I'm a gym member. I'm looking. I'm addressing these issues. I'm signed up with me and Ojo. I'm working with him. When's the last time you spoke to him? 3 months ago.
And then the first thing would be, why? What's he gone away or something? And you'd be like, nah. Like, but, you know, I'll catch up with him soon. And you think, but yeah. So it's the best thing in the world when I always say this, and I put content out about it, saying like, if someone's willing to listen and they do as I say, not in a, you know, and what I say is always never going to be anything that I've never done. So it's never going to be, you're not going to come to me at 20 odd stone wanting to get fit, and I'm going to go, right, marathon training block, Manchester Marathon April, we're going to do it, because it was year 4 before I even did my first 5K. I've done high rocks and stuff in the past, but I used to laugh saying I will never run more than a kilometre at a time, because I was like, I'm not going to run I get bored. You know, I'm not running 10. Are you mad? I'm not running 6 miles. Like, why would I? And now, Sunday, I've just been speaking to my mate. I've got a 28k run. So I'm getting up about 5. That's just a training run. No, even get a medal. It cost me. I've got to buy these gels, these electrolytes, these trainers.
I've been told about these electrolytes, because
it's costing me a fortune just to batter my body.
You do well, man. My limit's still a half marathon. I did my first half marathon, the last Manchester half marathon. And I've done a couple more, not official, just run 30 miles, run the distance. But I was like, I remember doing the couch to 5k in lockdown, and I was like, you know, I'm never going to get to this 5k. And then once it got to 5, it was a slow process for me before I got to 10. And then 10 miles, and then obviously doing that Manchester half marathon was great though, just sort of finishing that and having that sort of sense.
I did my first October 20, not October, no, was it last year? Yeah, last year was the first, that was the first one, the first half marathon and the first race I'd done. And I ran it with the formerly mentioned Koshi.
Michael Kosh, you must be off your head running with him.
Well, he was just, you know what he's like, he was just like, I'll get you under 2 hours, no problem, just run it with me. And then that was like, when I finished that, I said, there's not a chance I will ever be able to run that again. And then did Manchester Marathon in April, which was horrible because it was 20 odd degrees and it was Manchester and it was April, so it shouldn't have been that hot. And now, training for Amsterdam Marathon, and then just sort of consciously giving myself more and more challenges, so that not even just to promote the business, but just because I'm like, well, no one runs a marathon because it's fucking hard. So it's like, well, if I can run a marathon, then that's, you know, then you can run a marathon.
That's it.
I'm talking to you here.
You're our mutual friend. Right, you've called it out. Our mutual friend Koshi's called it out. I've got no excuses because I did it for Alcohol Change UK when I did the half, and then I think the Booth Centre I work with have been on my case as well.
London.
London. When is that?
Year, April.
I don't know. I've got a kid due in March. I don't have to. I'm trying to find an excuse here. I'm reaching out.
You're not giving birth.
He's done me there. Now, Ojo, it's been great chatting to you. It's been great getting to know you over the last few months as well, man. It's very inspiring. There's a link in the description. Go and check out Weight Loss with Ojo. Good stuff there. And hopefully we'll chat to you again soon, man. And just keep smashing it, man. Just an inspiring guy.
Get rid of me out of here now.
Good, love that. Yeah, watch this space. That's been Ojo. I'm Jay. This has been SoberFellas. Thanks for watching.
Cheers. Thank you.